Hi all, it's my pleasure to start this new day, this last day of PLT conference, Psychology, Learning and Technology. And today we will have 5 contributions. We will talk about a lot of themes from techno-stress, educational storytelling, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the well-being at school, and the relation between emotion and robotic education and robotic application in school context. We will have a lot of results, a lot of interesting paper, and today the session will be chaired by Professoressa Lucia Mason, a psychologist, developmental psychology, and she will chair the session that will end at 12. After this session, we will have a little break to have a minute of rest, and then we will be able to listen the keynote speech about the Professoressa Lucia Mason. The title of this speech is "Reducing the Impact of Misinformation, the Importance of Students' Online Source Evaluation and Comprehension of Conflicts Issues." I hope that you will enjoy this session. I ask to all the attendees to write down the question on chat in YouTube. When you will type this question, I will give voice of your words, written words, and I will loud out the sentences for the presenters, for the authors. Don't be shy, please do questions, because it's a moment to sharing, to reflection about this theme we want to discuss with all of you. So it will be a pleasure to hear your voice in a certain sense. I will give my voice for your voice. So I hope that you will enjoy this session and this day, the final day of the Psychology, Learning and Technology conference, and I give the floor to Professoressa Mason, Lucia Mason.
Thank you, Dr. Di Fuccio, for your nice introductions. And good morning to everyone. My name is Lucia Mason, and I'm working on the University of Padova. I'm speaking from my office at the university. I'm glad to be with you today. It is an honor to chair this session. From the titles and the short abstracts, I can say that the session is right at the intersection of psychology, learning, and technology. The session includes 4 presentations, and we research regarding both teachers and students. 4 presentations in a time frame of 2 hours. So each presenter will have about 23 minutes for the presentations, and then some minutes are left for questions from the audience. As Dr. Di Fuccio said, you can type your questions in Italian or in English as clarification questions, or comments, or reflections. But please be short, because the time is pressing. So I stop and present the first talk, which is entitled "Can Personal Resources and Job Crafting Reduce Techno Stress?" and empirical investigations in the context of school teachers. And the authors are Fulvio Signore of the University of Salento, Elisa De Carlo of the University of Bologna, and Marta Giaccari and Reina Madaro, Federica Malerba, and Emanuela Ingushi, all from the University of Salento. The speaker today is Emanuela Ingushi. Emanuela, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Prof. Can I share my presentation?
Yes.
You have to
You help me,
find. Yeah, absolutely. In the bottom part, left and bottom part, you will find a purple button. If you open it, you have 4 buttons. One is a square with an arrow, condividi contenuti. In basso a destra c'è un tastino che apre una sezione laterale.
Ok,
Non so se
ok.
ok. Terzo bottone, condividi contenuti.
Sì.
Condividi
applicazione schermo. Ok, thank you.
Schermo intero.
Perfetto.
E anche l'audio, se if there are any videos. We see your screen.
Okay.
You can
We can see your slide.
Perfect.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Prof. It's a pleasure to meet you, Prof. Lucia Amazon, because I have many books of yours, and it's a pleasure to be presented from you. Very pleasure, because when I was a student, I studied and I read your research. So I'm proud to be presented by you. Thank you for this opportunity. I am Emanuela Ingushi. I'm Associate Professor in Work and Organizational Psychology in University of Salento in Lecce. I will present you an empirical contribution about the meaning of work in workers in general and a school teacher in this contribution, because this contribution is a part of a main project about work in the COVID period in general. In this presentation, with my teamwork with Fulvio, Elisa, Marta, Andreina, and Federica, we aimed to explore the role of personal resources in the worker's ability to shape the job in the relation to perceived complexity of ICT tools, using the theoretical framework of JDR, Job Demands Resources Model. The theoretical framework is the following. We studied positive psychology and used the resilience as a form of personal resource, considering the framework, the model Job Demands Resources. This model is very strong and flexible at the same time, because it's used in several organizational contexts. It's composed by 2 main areas, processes. Job demands, which concern organizational aspect that produce an effort. Job demands are workload, are all the tasks required by work. So they are not negative, but they become negative if they exceed the worker ability to adapt, and they are balanced by job resources, which are aspects that reduce the cost arising from job demands, and in fact, job demands resources is defined, is graphically presented like a balance, where job demands are balanced by job resources. If this balance is not guaranteed, and the job demands exceed the job resource, we find a growing, gradual health impairment process, which leads to negative outcomes like burnout. If at the opposite, job resources can balance, buffer, and manage job demands, we find a positive motivational process which led to positive outcomes at individual, at organizational level, outcomes such as job satisfaction, job performance, and in general, all that positive outcomes useful for workers and for companies. But another piece of this model is characterized by personal resources, in particular psychological capital. We use it, resilience in particular, because is a term, is a form of personal resource very known, very used also in a sample of school teacher. And another construct, another variable which we study in our group research is job crafting, which is a proactive strategy used like a mediating with a mediating role, positive role, in order to buffer, to manage the relation between job demands, job resources, and between the outcomes like techno complexity, which is a part of techno stress. So some definitions: resilience, considering the theoretical frame from Lutyens, is the ability to recover from setbacks, adapt to change, cope with adversities, manage difficulty at work. It's characterized by a precondition, some negative stressor, and a positive adaptation in facing the distress. Very important resilience, we know, no, in the current scenario of pandemic, in health emergency. Job crafting is a proactive behavior, to modify, to craft, manipulate in positive sense, job characteristic based of the acting of demands resources, in order to improve the fit, the match between these characteristics and personal need and personal abilities. Job crafting is composed by following dimensions, factors: increasing structural resources, such as, for example, improving skills, professional skills; increasing social resources, for example, feedback by supervisor or colleagues; increasing challenging demands, carry out a new project; decreasing hindering demands, avoid emotional demands, for example. Techno stress is defined a condition in general suffered to a multitasking of application. The dimensions of techno stress are techno overload, techno invasion, techno complexity. In this contribution, we focused on this dimension, the worker perception, to have skills and experience to cope, to face difficulties of a new technology. You imagine the sample, the sample is composed by school teacher. So we hypothesize this model. Resilience as antecedent, techno complexity as a consequence, and the job crafting as a mediating variable. So the hypothesis 1 is resilience is positively associated with job crafting. Hypothesis 2, job crafting is negatively associated with the techno complexity. And hypothesis 3, the mediation, the resilience is negatively associated to techno complexity. And we explore in these three hypotheses the mediating role of job crafting in this relation. The sample was composed, school teacher. We in the main project we considered public administration, In a second part of the project, we consider a particular form of public administration with the scholar context, no? And in the scholar context, another level is characterized by the sample, because in the school we find also administrative staff. So we decided to focus on the school teacher and workers belonging to school teacher of in different grades. You can see the average age is 51. Most of the sample is composed by women. Most of them are married, cohabiting, and have a bachelor degree, and they have children. Most of them have a long-term contract. The measures are resilience, considering a scale adapted from the group research of La Sapienza, Alessandri, Borgogni, and colleagues. Techno-complexity is a dimension of techno-stress defined by Molina and colleagues. We validate this scale of techno-stress. Job crafting was measuring using 9 items from the Italian validation scale, carried out by a group, Italian group. Results. You can see we confirmed the 3 hypotheses and confirmed the mediating role of job crafting. So resilience seems to have an impact in containing, so an impact significant and negative in contain the consequences. So is very important as a personal resource used to contain the consequence, the effect derived from technological complexity, because we think, no, the situation in which school teachers experience the complexity of the use of the digital devices or platforms like Google Meet, Google Meet, Zoom, Microsoft, etc. The hypothesis 2, resilience as a positive and significant impact of job crafting, and hypothesis 3, job crafting as a protective effect against techno-complexity. So we found that job crafting is a partial mediator in the relation between resilience and techno-complexity in school teacher. It means that we found a significant relation between resilience and techno-complexity, but we found also that job crafting is a variable in its role, its mediating role, can increase, can improve this positive relation. Is very important also for practical implication, not only theoretical. Because resilience as a personal resource is negatively associated with techno-complexity, is represent a powerful functional tool to improve the quality of organizational life, but also of private personal life for teachers in school. Job crafting is a powerful variable in order useful to reduce the negative consequences, and useful also for organizational actions, because job crafting can be implemented through intervention, through action, can be improved together to personal resources. Limits of the study are the sample. No, the sample is a sample of convenience, so it doesn't reflect the criteria of randomness. You can see also the gender. The most of the sample is composed by female subjects. Another limit concerns self-reported questionnaire and the sample size. So practical implication of future research concern implementing digital training, because it's a new normality. No, we are living, we know this, we are living a new normality post-COVID. No, we call it post-COVID, a new normality. So we live with this digital device. So a school teacher could be supported in this phase, in this step of education, no? For the correct use of technology, protecting them from the consequence of techno stress, no? Complexity, in techno invasion, diritto alla connessione, no? Alla disconnessione. So it's very important also in several generation of workers, because most of school teachers are older workers. No, you can see the average age 51. So it's very important to support, considering this diversity management. Another implication, another suggestion is about the knowledge and the opportunity to improve, to empower the personal resource through targeted organizational intervention. I finish it. I don't know if the time.
Thank you, Manuela, for your perfect timing. So we have time for questions about your interesting presentation. So any questions from the audience?
At the moment, no, but I'm checking.
I can ask a question. May I ask a question, Emanuela? Can you please?
I'm trying to organize the desktop.
You have to push the button in the upper part, sopra, andando sopra. Anche là, anche quel bottone lì. Quello.
Okay, Emanuela, I have a question for you. Yeah. Can you provide an example of crafting in our Italian school context, job crafting? An example.
Interventional actions. You mean?
Yeah, you mean that the job crafting is acts as an important mediator. An example of job crafting.
Yeah. We didn't carry out organizational interventions in the school. No. We try to organize programs in a way, in telematic way, with the public administration, with our university, because we carry out a program of teleworking before COVID, before the pandemic, and during pandemic, with general director and rector, we carried out a training with administrative staff in our university to share benefit and disadvantage of smart working, no, of remote working. Yes, yes. This is the first training, but in the school, no, in the scholar context.
Because my question is related to the issue, how in concrete, on a concrete level, how much teachers can actually craft their job.
There are many tasks, no? There are many exercises, okay? With Eva De Meruti, Bacher, several authors who are the creators of job crafting, we are carrying out a protocol, no? A model. There are exercises about task analysis and job analysis. Okay, so each subject, each participant has to declare, no, share which are the tasks, for example, he or she carries out alone or in group, tasks with no goal, with goals in medium or large term, for example.
Okay, this is clear. Thank you, Emanuela. If there are no other questions, we can move to the second presentation. Okay,
Raffaele? Yeah, there are not questions on chat.
Okay, so the second presentation is entitled Education Digital Storytelling, Empowering Students to Shape Their Future. And the authors are Anna Parola of the University of Napoli, Federico II, Raffaele Di Fuccio, University of Foggia, Federico Somma, University of Foggia again, and Orazio Milino, a colleague who unfortunately passed away last year, worked at the University of Napoli, Federico II. I know that Anna Parola and Raffaele Di Fuccio are the presenters, and Anna Parola will appear on a video, right?
Yeah.
And then Raffaele Di Fuccio will continue the presentations. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I present this paper. We presented this positional paper, and we will hear the voice of Anna Parola that will introduce the first part. Then I will take the floor and I continue the presentation. I start my presentation, so you will hear
everyone.
Anna.
Unfortunately, I cannot stay with you, but I hope that my presentation will be clear for all of you. I present the paper Education Digital Storytelling, Empowering Students to Shape Their Future, by me, Federica Somma and Orazio Milino of the University of Napoli, Federico II, and Raffaele Di Fuccio of the University of Foggia. The first part is presented by me, and the second part will be presented by Raffaele Di Fuccio. In this first part, I present to you the evolution of the concept of the storytelling, specifically from the storytelling to educational digital storytelling. Storytelling is not new. Is the sharing of ideas, needs, and experiences through words to make meaning about personal lives. And the focus of storytelling is transferring meaning. The power is the ability, the possibility to negotiate new meanings and understanding. And according to Brunner, storytelling is cultivating the possible. Digital storytelling is an evolution of the classical storytelling. In fact, digital storytelling offers a new instrument for writing storytelling, that is the use of digital media, including text, recorded narration, picture, music, and video. According to Lambert, digital storytelling is a short narrative film. Through creating electronic personal narratives, the individual become active creators. And digital storytelling offers an effective integration of digital technologies in classroom. Educational digital storytelling is an application of digital storytelling in a school environment and is often presented as a technology-enhanced learning approach with several educational benefits. In a recent systematic review of educational digital storytelling, Wu and Ken showed 8 types of outcomes. For example, affective, cognitive, technological, and social outcomes. Among the possible use of educational digital storytelling, we propose the use of educational storytelling for career guidance and specifically to enhance career choices. Educational storytelling could be a tool to create and share digital stories to enhance career choices. In this way, students can think about their future and about their present student, and use media to talk about their aspirations, needs, and dreams in a narrative way. In a recent paper, Pordelan and colleagues have shown the benefits on the use of digital storytelling as a tool for life design. Life design is a career guidance model, and Pordelan and colleagues showed the increase of career self-efficacy and career decision making. Now I give the floor to Untitled Chapter that present you the Nfl project that propose a use of educational digital storytelling for career guidance and to support the students' career choices.
I want to thank Anna Parola for this introduction. And now I explain, I show a project that will be done in the next month because it started in December. So we are in the second month. And it's called Nfl, Need Prevention in the Educational System Through Positive Future Vision, Enhancing Learning and Teacher Education. Why Nfl? What does mean Nfl? Nfl means cloud. Cloud in Greek is also an infus. However, the image that we want to share is when you are on a land, on a grass, and you are seeing the sky, you see the clouds. And in the clouds, you see something. Probably you see a face, you see an animal. In the same way, the students should see something in the clouds in order to have the definition of their next future, see their future in the clouds. This is the metaphor. The project is led by University of Naples. That is the leader of the project, is an Erasmus Plus key activity too. And there is the Smart, that is a company. I'm the former CEO of the Smart. There is also SUPSI, that is a research center of Switzerland that work on job orientation. University of Valencia that will apply the approach about positive psychology. Hellenic Open University, they will help regarding the MOOC, and EATU, that is association of universities that will help us in the dissemination and in exploitation of the project. Nefele aims at modeling innovative methodologies for pre-service teachers of middle schools. Our target are pre-service teachers. So we want to train, to create new tools for them, pre-service teachers of middle school that can be useful to support adolescents' career construction and a positive vision of the future. We apply positive psychology and life career design. We will have a first framework that will be a sort of guidelines for our project, for other projects. We will create a MOOC, so an online course open to all, but targeted to the pre-service teacher. We will create an Nfl box, and I will explain very in details what is an Nfl box. And at the end, we will create a platform. However, in the Nfl box, we will give tools. We will create an authoring tool that allows creating a set of games for middle school pupils based on TUIs. That means tangible user interface. But what are the tangible user interface? Probably now you are using a tangible user interface because the mouse, I put a picture of the first mouse that has 50 years, is a tangible user interface because you are moving an object in the real space and you are driving a graphical user interface. That means your Windows page. You are moving an arrow in the digital space using an object. So the tangible user interface allows us to use with our manipulation, our senses, in a multisensorial approach, the physical world, and to use this in order to move to drive, to lead, to control a graphical user interface.
I can't hear you. I don't know if the others can hear the presentations, but I can't. I'm sorry, there is anybody who can help? Yeah, he's trying to reconnect.
Hi, I lost my connection. I'm there.
Yes.
I restart
Okay.
my
Please go
presentation.
ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry for the problem. In a minute, I'm back.
Yeah.
Probably you lost me when I presented the video, I think.
Yes, after the mouse, after the slide with the mouse. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Now I explain what is a tangible user interface, giving an example with objects. I present the video so you can see this. We plug in PC, and the objects are recognized by smart table, a smart board. So they are connected to the digital interface. So we can create a smart object because are recognized by a digital interface. So add multimedia. But which is the technology that we use? We use Nfc technology. It's very, very common in our lives. If you pay contactless, you are using Nfc technology. When you go to an hotel and you have your key, your card, this is Nfc technology. It's very spread. It's very usual in our lives. So it's very cheap also, and we empower, embed the digital side on the object, so the object became a smart object. But in Nefele, which is the sense? The sense is to create boxes, to create a tool of objects that are useful for middle school pupils, students, to create their story about their job future. In this case, I put some fake doctor tools. We can keep any tools to insert inside each of the object, a content to create a digital storytelling, to create a path, to create a story with my voice, with or other multimedia, but I can create a story using the object, creating my my storytelling about the job future and my the imagination of the job to guide the students to be in their shoes of the future, in the future of their job. So educational storytelling, NFL is an application of educational storytelling, can serve as a tool to strengthen and foster the necessary skills as well as awareness of the career choices available for oneself, to design and continuously improve a collective vision of multiple possible futures and ways of being both individually and collectively. It's important we will create social scenario. We will apply classrooms, but in a collective way. And we want to apply this also for inclusive aspects, because when you have an object, you can experience the object itself. So it's addressed also for inclusion, to foster students empowering about their future by optimism and hope. It's a novel approach, and we aim to enhance the career self-efficacy as Borderland proposed. So that's all, folks. Thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, I'm very pleased to reply to you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Raffaele Di Fuccio, Dr. Di Fuccio, for this presentation about the future, I would say also of our research at the connection between learning and the technology and psychology, of course. So are there questions?
No, at the moment on the chat there are. Yeah, at the moment
people are shy today.
Yeah, today,
don't be shy and ask your questions or just share your reflections.
Yeah, I think that this is an innovative mode. It's something that we have to test. We in this moment we don't bring here data. I have other data by previous research, and we know that multisensory approach improve memorization in children. We have applied with children between 6 and 8 years. Now we will apply this for middle school in another approach, and we hope that we are sure in the next future, in the next year of this conference, we will have results to discuss with all the scientific community, and to see how the job crafting, job attitude for the future will be applied with this application. However, we target to the pre-service. We go to the top of the teaching approach. So to the teachers, to the pre-service teacher, to the teacher that will be the teacher of the future.
Even that there is a time I can ask a question. You. I missed the specific link between the use of tools and career guidance, life design. The link.
Yeah, we want to create. We want to propose to teachers and then to students a way to create their story about their their future, their approach to the work using the object. So the object will guide to create a story approaching the job guidance to give to students and to propose to pre-service teacher to teach in a certain way a positive approach for the future, referring to the hope and optimism, using the objects, using something that explain their future job and to think about the future job, to prepare to their career, to the next career, to think about a moment of reflection, guided by, because in the first part we will create a methodological framework that will guide the correct link. In this moment we are creating the real approach with the framework for building new scenarios and so on based on theories. So this is on fly. We are ongoing in this part.
Okay. Best wishes with collecting. I think that you need some longitudinal design to see the effects when you plan.
Absolutely.
In concrete terms. Okay, thank you. And we can move to the third presentation, which is entitled On the Perceptions of Online Learning Due to COVID-19 Pandemic. Case study. The authors are Emiliano Del Gobbo, Alfonso Guarino, Barbara Caffarelli, Luca Grilli, and Pierpaolo Limone, all from the University of Foggia. The presenter today is Emiliano Del Gobbo. Welcome, Emiliano. The floor is yours.
Hello. Thank you. Just 1 second, I share my presentation.
Yes.
Okay. I hope you can see the presentation now. Okay.
Yes, we can.
Yes, perfect. Oh, yes. Today I'm presenting a study on the perceptions of online learning due to COVID-19 pandemic, focusing on the case study of University of Foggia. This paper is authored by me, Emiliano Del Gobbo, by Alfonso Guarino, Barbara Caffarelli, Luca Grilli, and Pierpaolo Limone. As a result of COVID-19, higher education all over the world has moved to deliver courses online during spring 2020. In Italy, online learning has been expanded to fall 2020 and also spring 2021. The shift towards online education during the pandemic of COVID-19 has led many studies to focus on perceived learning outcomes and student satisfaction in this new learning environment. This paper explores perceptions of students from University of Foggia about online learning after the COVID-19 government measures. Transition to online learning in some institutions started already before the COVID-19. Some universities were offering asynchronous courses where instructors prepare segments or record the lectures, and students can complete them at their own place. Some other institutions use the synchronous learning that occurs at a specific time via specific medium. The University of Foggia, even before the COVID-19 pandemic, was engaged in online teaching. Specifically, 7 courses were held in a blended form, and the University of Foggia was also leading the EduOpen project, a platform providing several open online courses. This previous experience made the rush transition to online learning smoother. So, to understand the effect of COVID-19 outbreak on the students' community, the Italian National Agency for Evaluation of Universities and Research Institutes and the European Association for Quality Assurance in Higher Education have promoted and established a working group to develop a survey to analyze the didactic experiences made in Italian universities during the COVID-19 health emergency. From this work, come a questionnaire composed of 16 questions that has been submitted by email or also diffused with word of mouth. We got over 3,000 respondents on a population of 11,000 students. And the data gathering occurred between the 1st April 2021 and the 19th April 2021. The questions can be grouped in 3 different sections. The first sections are about questions about general information, segmentation variables of students, like the degree course they was enrolled in, or how far they live from University of Foggia. The second section are the main questions that focus about the online learning experience of students. These questions may be related to, 10 questions are related to 10 different features they go to measure, such as the easiness of the learning platform, difficulty on finding didactic material, increased the class attendance, improvement in the time management, or the negative impact on the emotional state, and so on. The last last sections are about some preference for the future after the COVID-19 pandemic, the preference about the teaching methods to adopt, and further suggestion of observation, and that is just an open-ended questions where they can write their recommendation, suggestion, or personal comments. So, going to show some results from this questionnaire, we see how in this slide the distribution of participants with respect to total students enrolled at the University of Foggia. On the left, per degree course, and on the right, per year of enrollment. We can see for some department, we achieve a really high response rate, in some cases close to the 40%. And this is the same as also higher for some year of enrollment. In this slide, we see the distribution of respondents by their distance from Foggia. Specifically, we see how the 29% of students live in Foggia. The 38% of students live in a city that is far less than 50 kilometers from Foggia city. This can be considered commuter students because of the short distance from the city. There is another 33% of students that comes from a city outside over the 50 kilometers from Foggia. These students may be just students that took a temporary accommodation in Foggia, but also there can be some commuter students, because some cities, also if further than 50 kilometers, have a good public transport connection with Foggia. We're going to see the results of the participant answers by their home distance from University of Foggia. We see in this slide the results. They are segmented by the students' distance from University of Foggia. The charts are box plots for who isn't used to work with this kind of chart. The red line indicates the median value, and at the top and the bottom of the box plot indicates the first quartile and third quartile. We can see how the score provided for online learning are really high for almost all questions, and where the score is low, this is due to the fact that the question is asked with a negative frame about online learning. Just to make an example, difficulty of finding didactic material, a lower score indicates a better experience for online learning. We can see how the highest score has been achieved from the question about the utility of recorded lessons. That is unanimously of great interest for students. We can also see how for all the questions there are not significant differences between the segments. Some difference occurs in the last 3 questions. Specifically, we see how the students coming out from outside Foggia, a city, experienced better time management. And this is reasonable because they just saved the time of traveling to Foggia every day. And in the 90 questions, we see how students living in Foggia experience the worst conversation with the teacher. This may be justified by the fact that the students also relatively more comfortable in the university environment because they didn't have the constraints of the public transport timetable in attending lessons, so they have more time to stay and to be comfortable interacting in the lectures. And the same reason apply also in the last question, because the students of Foggia, from Foggia experienced the worst impact on the emotional state from online learning. As you do because they could attend more often the university environment and the social life of university, and so the university's facilities. We also decided to apply the pairwise Markov random field model. PMRF is a well-known network model used for estimating psychological networks. The PMRFs are networks where the nodes represent variables connected by indirect edges. To make an example, we can imagine a network model with the 3 nodes, epsilon1, epsilon2, and epsilon3, and a couple of indirected edges between epsilon1, epsilon2, and between epsilon2 and epsilon3. We can consider epsilon1, in this case, conditional independent from epsilon3, given epsilon2 that may be a mediator or a moderator in a psychometric network. If we go to remove the epsilon2 from the network, the 2 variables may be correlated. Just to make this more clear, we can have just an example. We can consider the variable epsilon1 and epsilon3 maybe the answer to the questions, are you happy to go to work? And do you consider your work environment comfortable? These 2 questions have a high chance to be correlated, but their correlation could be explained by the variable epsilon2. Is it your dream job? If that is not my dream job, it's really likely the other 2 questions will have a lower score. However, if I remove these questions, these 2 questions may be in some way connected in their answers. So the edges between the nodes indicates there is a conditional dependence between the 2 variables, while low weight or absent edges indicate the 2 variables are independent after conditioning on other variables. To apply these models, we used R and the R library Psychometrics that is not a mistype. So going to see the results, we apply these models on the different segments of answers, and we can see in these graphs the networks this produced. The blue edges indicates a connection between the 2, a relation between the 2 answers, while a red edge indicates an inverse connection between the 2 answers. And this is mainly due to the fact that we have some questions that are in a negative frame in this specific case. The thicker the edge is, the stronger the relation is between the 2 questions. So we can see how some connections are relevant among all the 3 networks, such as the 7.5 instructor proficiency for remote teaching and overall satisfaction for remote and blended learning, and also the inverse connection between 8 and 10, time management improvement and a negative impact on the emotional state. The same is also for 3 and 8, increase the class attendance and time management improvement. Going to see the network of commuters students, we see also some other edges In particular, the connection between overall satisfaction for remote and blended learning and the negative impact on the emotional state, and also the connection between the difficulty of finding didactic material and the instructor proficiency for remote teaching. These last two connections are more relevant for students coming from a city further than 50 kilometers from Foggia, and we also see a stronger connection on this edge, and also another connection between 2 and 7, difficulty of finding didactic material and the overall satisfaction for remote and blended learning. So, going to the last section of questions, we can see how the students answered they still prefer to continue with online learning or blended learning after the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the students coming from Foggia, there is a consistent group of students preferring to come back to traditional learning only. And this is true also for unique cycle master students. Going to analyze the last question about the open-ended questions with the students can just submit their comments. Many of them just congratulated with the appreciated the learning platform and the experience offered by the University of Foggia. However, these are some interesting comments about how the students manifested discomfort for remote learning approach, complaining about lack of interactions between a relationship with students, apathy and alienation of attending class from a device, anxiety and discomfort in taking exams online, and the unsuitability of this method for some matters requiring practical assistance and experience. So in conclusion, the analysis showed how the overall opinion of students about the experience offered by university is generally positive. We saw that in the main question of how high was the scores. However, students living outside Foggia city have benefited more from remote learning compared to students living in Foggia that experienced reduced human contact with the online learning approach. Students enrolled in bachelor programs had more difficulties integrating into the university environment. These results are shown in some other graphs I didn't show in this presentation. And however, this may be due because the direct transition from high school to university with learning and COVID restriction has been difficult, and they just didn't have the time to get comfortable with the university environment. The PMRF analysis provided insight on some peculiar interaction between the measured factors. However, this analysis has been really limited by the shortcomings of the questions adopted. The two limited values of Likert items and the lacking of some crucial question was really a flaw. Some other interesting question would have been more psychological and introspective about the student's experience. And however, we are aiming to continue this research, maybe asking with other questions and more investigating on this topic. However, the appreciation and emotional state experience diverges across different segments of students. So the remote learning is really helpful for many students, and this is really revolutionary as experience. However, this cannot be the ultimate solution to fix the complexity of the learning needs in our case. So, presentation is over. Thank you for your attention.
I thank you for your interesting presentation. I think that we all are interested in knowing more about remote learning. And I thank you also for sharing details about advanced statistical analysis with R. And now it's time for questions. I hope there are questions from the audience.
At the moment, no, but if I may, I have quick questions to.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. Very, very interesting. I
Thank you.
appreciate a lot. I want to know which is your follow-up of the study. What do you want to analyze after the study? You, in a certain word, you said this, but I want to know which is your next steps, and if it can be interesting to assess not the distance of the users, of the students, but the time they need, the span to go to the university, to reach the real classroom, to switch this, if you think that there can be a possibility. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Really, thank you for your questions. Yes, the starting point for the next search we want to carry on is just starting from the flow of the questionnaire we used that has some constraints due to the its origin. Substantially, we want to increment the segmentation variable, and we also want to add the questions you proposed, because just asking the distance from university is just poor questions, we have to say. I'd prefer to know if they are just commuter students or not directly, not just by supposing it or guessing. And yes, another interesting segmentation variable will be the time they really spend to get to the university. As I told before, some cities are a lot well connected with Foggia, while others not. About the main questions, I showed how the questions are mainly related to the implementation of a learning platform at university. There are a few questions really psychological. I think just the last one is the main psychological, asking about their emotional state. I think we can also ask other questions about other emotions the students felt and experienced specifically in different moments of the online learning experience. I can make just an example, differ between the moment they are attending classes and the moment they are taking exams. These are two different moments, and they could have different, this can have different psychological impact. And in this case, really useful guidelines are provided from the last question, the open-ended questions, where students provided their personal comments, and I just make you some example of their comments, but whether they are really interesting to be investigated further. So in the future, we want to focus a bit less on the pure learning experience of the university, but more by getting just a more introspective point of view of the experience felt by the students, and also achieve some insight of this. We are quite sure there are some defects in online learning that can be mitigated in some way by just changing the learning approach substantially. I hope I answered.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for your reply.
Okay, I have only a comment. I agree with your last sentence that remote learning cannot be the ultimate solution for all learning needs. I was impressed by your PMRF data about the negative relations regarding the impact on emotions and the relationship, the relations with the teacher, the instructor, or professor. So I think that these are two crucial points, two crucial issues to take into account.
Yes. Thank you. However, yes, they are really interesting because we saw our time management is for some students really important. This impact a lot on the emotional state. This is not so given before. So this is an interesting insight. However, also the results about the interaction between teacher and students is an interesting interaction. And this is something that could be effectively more investigated with also a better, repetitive, but of course we could just improve the questions, so achieve some more significant and just more interpretable results about these problems.
Yes, for example, time management is a key aspect of self-regulated learning. And we know that the students, especially in the first year of the university career, they are not very well self-regulated because everything has changed from the high school, and they should be able to regulate and to manage their time. So this is very important from a psychological point of view.
For time reasons, I omitted some slides about the segmentation by the degree the students was attending, the difference between master's degree and the bachelor degree. And there is really some difference because, of course, bachelor degrees students experienced substantially a worse experience because they just the transition has been direct from university, from high school to university. So they didn't have time to take confidence with the university environment, all the platforms. So many of them, they never attended university at all. And there are also some consideration about the bachelor students suffer the worst emotional state compared to master degree students, that they really enjoyed the online teaching because they generally are usually also working students, so they can just better manage their time thanks to the learning to the learning.
Yes, I think that you can have interesting data if they are disaggregated by the level, the educational level, bachelor or master. And this is also a problem before COVID-19, of course. It is the transition from high school to the university environment. Okay, thank you again.
Thank you
for your presentation and the answers to the questions, your comments. And we move to the last presentation of this session, which is entitled Middle School Children's Well-Being is Related to Their Study Attitude. The authors of this research work are Enrico Sacchi of the University of Pavia, Caterina Artuso, University of Pavia and University of Urbino, and Paola Palladino, University of Foggia. The speaker today is Enrico Sacchi, and the floor is now yours, Enrico.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Professor Essamazon, for your presentation. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes. Just share the slides with us.
Okay. Let me just.
Okay. We can see you, which is enough as
my presentation. Can you see the presentation now?
Not yet.
No.
Yes.
Did you press share video?
Yes, I'm pressing.
In basso a destra c'è un tasto condividi contenuti e poi condividi applicazione schermo.
Which I'm pressing it, but
nothing happens.
Nothing happens. So,
otherwise, you can use
condividi
Condividi
applicazione
file.
schermo, condividi applicazione
Esatto.
schermo.
Exactly. And now you press on the fake, and condividi. Otherwise, finestra, you can select your.
We should be there.
Yeah, now we see all your screen.
Okay.
Great.
So I'm here in Pavia and surrounded by fog, and looks like that fog is in my computer as well. Anyway.
No problem. We see.
Can you see?
Very well.
Can you see now?
Yeah, we see your screen. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you for your patience. So, middle school children's well-being is related to their study attitude. First of all, let's to clarify what we decided, meaning with the meaning of well-being, psychological well-being in students, and we decided to face this construct of children well-being, referring to the theoric frameworks and the instruments based on the principle of positive psychology. Basically, the meaning of well-being has been longly debated in the past, and exponents of positive psychology have argued that much of modern psychology is deficit-based, and it is particularly focused on researching the prevention of cure of mental illnesses. And obviously, they underline the need to understand and promote positive emotion, positive characters, and positive institutions, and to focus on well-being as a positive measure of healthy functioning. Further research as well provided evidence that the notion of psychological well-being is on a separate dimension to the illness rather than the opposite end of a continuum. In the few recent years, few authors focused from the hedonic and the eudaimonic elements, referring to psychological well-being. The hedonic point of view is linked to life satisfaction, the presence of positive mood and the absence of negative mood. The eudaimonic point of view is more orientated to autonomy, personal growth, and self-acceptance, life purpose and mastery as well. So as we can realize, the hedonic point of view is more related to the present perceptions of students about what is their well-being. The eudaimonic point of view is more orientated to the future. And eventually, we decided to recognize the definition of personal psychological well-being in children and adolescents as a condition marked by the presence of positive emotions as well as positive appearance. This definition came out from Liddell and Carter in 2015, and these two authors realized a scale as well, the Sterling Children Wellbeing Scale, which is the scale that we used in this research to assess the psychological well-being. We decided to use this scale because basically it gives a positive perspective of well-being opposed to a deficit-based scale, and proved to be very reliable and a valid measure for psychological well-being. The objectives of our study were investigating psychological well-being in middle school students 6th to 8th grade, and investigating correlations between psychological well-being and children's study skills and attitudes. And according to what we found in literature, we are expecting to find a reduction of psychological well-being with age, as well as positive correlation between attitude towards school and study school skills and well-being. Our sample was made up of a total of 649 students, 343 males and 305 females, and specifically 239 students coming from 6th grade, 194 coming from 7th grade, and 216 coming from 8th grade. We, as materials, we use the Sterling Children Wellbeing Scale, as I mentioned earlier, to check the emotional, the psychological well-being in students, and the questionnaires on the study approach from the Amos Battery 815, from the Padova group, Cornell, the Benins of Berlin. The Sterling Children Wellbeing Scale, as I said, is a scale based on psychology positive perspective, and it is a scale composed by 50 based on a 5-point Likert scale as option of answer, and 6 of these scales, 6 of these items were investigating the subcomponents of the emotional positive states. Other 6 items were investigating the subcomponents of positive outlook, and the 3 remaining items were testing the social desirability. Again, the questionnaire on approach to study is a short questionnaire and is taken from, I said, the Amos Battery. And basically, the students are required to read and analyze a series of information that describe a possible study strategies approach that they have, and the answers are based on a 3-point Likert scale. And the area investigated are motivation, personal work organization, strategic processing.
Sorry for
yes.
interrupting you. We don't see the slides moving on. I don't know if you are already on the same slide. We are on the slide about materials.
Yes, we are still here. We are still here.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's not a problem at all. Okay, and I was saying this questionnaire, the Amos questionnaire approach to study, investigates these 7 areas, which are motivation, personal work, organization, strategic processing, study flexibility, concentration, anxiety, and attitude toward works. And every area is investigated by 7 items. And procedures-wise, the 2 questionnaires were collectively administered at the school by master students in psychology of the University of Pavia. The session lasted about 75 minutes, and the students were coming from school in Pavia and from suburban areas of Pavia and Milan as well. From the results point of view, as we can see, we can notice a decreasing of perceived psychological well-being with increasing of the age. Actually, there is a significant difference between 6th and 8th graders students, and a significant difference between 7th and 8th graders students as well. We still can notice a kind of decrease in the perceived well-being between 6th and 7th graders, but is not significant from our point of view. And again, a significant main effect of gender by school grade interaction, particularly in 8th grade. There is a difference between males and females. here is just a table that shows what are the main standard, the mean and the standard deviation for Stirling scores by school grade and gender. And regarding the second aim, we wanted to find out, we conducted correlation between the three Stirling Children Wellbeing Scales scores, which are the global score, the emotional positive state, and the positive outlook, and the 7 areas investigated in the QAS. And as you can notice, all the Stirling scores are highly related to each other. And in addition, it is worth noticing the negative relation between well-being and anxiety, and the positive relations between well-being indexes and specific abilities useful during studies such as motivation, personal work organization, concentration, and attitude. So we can see the perceived well-being reduces significantly with age in middle school children. We were expecting this result. Basically, these results came out analyzing what Liddell and Carter got in their studies, and analyzing the results from studies that were conducted in different countries in which the translation and the validation of the Stirling scale is already done, which is one of our aim as well. This study that we are presenting is just a part of a bigger study, which is finalized to have an Italian version of the Stirling Children Wellbeing Scale, and quite happy to say that looks like we are nearly there. And again, we had a good internal consistency of the two subscales of the emotional positive states and the positive outlook. Again, a positive correlation between emotional positive states and motivation, organization, concentration, and attitude towards the school. And the negative significant correlations appears with anxiety. So the positive outlook Stirling Wellbeing Score correlates with all the indices of the QAS, and the results seems to indicate that well-being as measured by Stirling Wellbeing Scale is significantly related to attitude towards the study, both metacognitive attitude and emotional attitude. And obviously the results clearly highlight the association between psychological well-being attitude towards the study to indicate that they are linked to each other. We mentioned earlier that we can see an evidence of decreasing of what is the perceived well-being with the increase of the age in middle school. And if we think about that, we ask the possible reason of this. Obviously, we have to consider that at this stage, students face the transition from the childhood to the adolescence with all the developmental tasks that all these involves. And again, different studies showed a sort of gap between the competence that are required in the primary school and the competence required by the setting of the middle secondary school. Just to conclude, the relationship between well-being and attitude towards learning and studying at school may represent an interesting development and deepening reflection of the association between emotions and learning. And again, further studies may directly analyze different variables to better understand their reciprocal relationships. Thank you very much for your attention.
We thank you for your clear presentation. It is very important for the Italian context. Sorry.
Sorry.
We thank you for your clear presentations. It is important for the Italian context that you are going to validate the instrument to measure well-being in adolescents. Any questions from the audience? We have plenty of time.
Yeah, if you want to, yes, this is the button to close the sharing.
Yeah,
Apart, exactly. Condivisione.
Here we are.
Perfect. From the chat, at the moment, there are no questions. No questions.
Okay, I have just a comment, a reflection, Enrico.
Yes.
You measured general well-being. I mean, not well-being related to the specific educational school context, but well-being at a more general level. And you found very important correlations between student attitude, different kind of student attitude toward the study, and this general well-being. So my reflection is that for these adolescent students, school absorbs a great part of their perceptions about how they feel, how they perceive the emotions they experience, negative and positive. Am I clear in my reflection?
Yes, of course you are. Basically, yes, we investigated the psychological well-being, as I said, on the perspective of the positive psychology. So basically the hedonic point of view and the eudaimonic point of view. Basically, I perceive well-being when I feel at the moment that I'm able to cope with the life situation, and I think I will be able to cope with difficulties and life situation in life in the future as well. And again, what gives the students this perception? When students, and that's the reason that we basically we conducted this study, approaching with two different questionnaires, because we wanted to face if students that at school are able to cope with a task and obviously and face all the difficulties that they might face, perceive a well-being as well, if it is a correlation between these two construct, or if there is not correlation at all. It was just another point of view to text what contributes to give to the students the perception of well-being in itself.
Okay, it's important. And in the most recent research, the contributions of emotional and not only motivational variables has been documented greatly in the last research. So your data are aligned with the recent research that tries to connect and to see the cognitive and emotional correlates of school performance and school achievement.
That's it. And if we consider the two perspectives, the hedonic and the eudaimonic, obviously that hedonic is more related to the emotional point of view, as you said, and the eudaimonic is more oriented and related to the cognitive one.
Yes. Okay, any other questions or comments from the audience?
No, at the moment, no. There are not other questions.
No, it means that I can close with some general remark.
Yeah.
It is my impression that today we have attended an interesting session, and we have heard about the importance of some features of the learning environment that are supported by technology. These important features are interactivity, creativity, personalization. We have also heard about the importance of individual factors. As a psychologist, we are very much interested in measuring individual characteristics, students' individual characteristics. And by individual characteristics, I include the cognitive, the motivational, the emotional, and the personality variables. Across the presentation, we have learned about the contributions of these individual factors. And I think that to and to have a bigger picture in educational research, we must take always into account the interplay, the delicate interplay between individual and the contextual variables, especially when we consider learning environments supported by technology. So I conclude wishing you much motivations, well-being, and the passion in continuing your research in the service of the advancement of our knowledge about what we can do to improve not only learning, but also well-being and well-being in the school context at a more general level. Thank you for attending these sessions, and for those of you who are interested at noon 15, in about half an hour, there is the last talk of this PLT meeting. So now you can have a longer break than planned, and see you if you are interested in half an hour. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Princess Amazon, for this closure of this session. And we can take a piece of cake. Unfortunately, not in real, but anyone can take the coffee in his or her flat. So we come back at a quarter past 12 and 15, and there will be the final keynote speech by the Professoressa Mason. Thank you, and we will come in at 12 and 15. campeggia l'immagine della conferenza con coffee break. Gli abbiamo comunicato anche per iscritto sulla chat che riprendiamo e poi sentiamo il tuo intervento e poi facciamo la giurata. Tra l'altro potrebbe arrivare il professor Limone, non so se ce la farà perché era incastrato con le questioni della CRUI, eccetera. Insomma, spero che ci sia.
Ci sono persone, in questi giorni,
Sì.
quante persone erano più o meno presenti?
Allora, primo giorno 110 più o meno, abbiamo avuto situazioni oltre i 100 sempre. Ieri tantissimi, forse perché il pomeriggio è un pochino più semplice, siamo arrivati a punti 140. Oggi invece stiamo sull'80.
Comunque ci sono, perché nessuno ha fatto domande, mi chiedevo
No,
se...
infatti, infatti l'altro giorno erano un pochino più... Hi all, welcome back to the last part of the PLT conference, Psychology, Learning and Technology. This last part will have we are very glad to have here Professoressa Mazon that will present, will give a speech, a keynote speech, and will close our conference. That was last 3 days. We were very happy to the participation of the attendees, but because the number of participants were very high, for certain way unexpected. and we are very pleased for this. But I don't want to keep time. We will do closing remarks at the end with the conference chairs, me, and if the duties will give free the Professor Limone, and the speech from the Professoressa Mason of the University of Pavia is called the speech is called "Reducing the Impact of Misinformation: The Importance of Students' Online Source Evaluation and Comprehension on Conflict Issues." I'll give the floor to Lucia Mason, and thank you for your presence and your speech.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I thank you, Dr. Raffaele Di Fuccio, for inviting me to this conference on behalf of Professor Limone, and I'm also grateful to you for all your assistance, technical assistance. Hope you can relax during my talk, meaning that there are no technical problems on my part, but let's see. I'm glad to have the opportunity today to share with you some of my work about topical issues in our digital era, to be able to evaluate the reliability, the credibility of online information sources. I just forgot to share the slides. And
you have to go to the third button.
Yes.
Condividi file. You push on.
Yes, I already done. Okay. I was saying that I'm very glad to have the opportunity to share with you today some of my research work about topical issues in our digital era, to be able to evaluate the reliability, the credibility of online information sources, that is to be equipped against misinformation and misconceptions. So this is the overview of my talk about reading, evaluating, and learning online information. I will focus on the general context of searching information on the web, on validation and sourcing, multiple text comprehensions, and I will present data about interventions to improve sourcing and multiple text comprehension. I will, throughout my talk, I will focus on theoretical models and research findings. So the OECD posits that literacy in the 21st century is about constructing and validating knowledge. Every day, the massive information flow of the digital era demands readers to be able to distinguish between facts and opinions. The infodemic related to COVID-19 has made it even harder to discern the accuracy of information. And this infodemic shows how it is essential to be a proficient reader in a digital world. Let me present an example. More than 1 year ago, it got viral, the misinformation that we could treat COVID-19, even prevent COVID-19 by using a dewormer, which is typically used for horses when they have worms in their intestines. And of course, scientists explain that we shouldn't use this medicine to treat or prevent COVID-19. because it may be even lethal for humans in some circumstances. Yet, 1 week ago, the site of an important newspaper, Italian newspaper, reported a video of one of the leaders of the no-vax movement, the movement against vaccines, who was saying that he got infected and he was treating himself using in this dewormer for horses. You know that the problem is a big problem, because if in the past the difficult task of controlling the accuracy, the veracity, and trustworthiness of information was traditionally carried out by editors and publication companies, this difficult task is now transferred to the readers themselves, to the students themselves, because by a simple click of the mouse, everyone can post everything at no cost. So the problem is, what do we have to believe in and why? From a theoretical point of view, research has indicated that we need advanced digital literacy skills. And these advanced digital literacy skills include different types of skills. Task management skills, as we need to be able to search for information in an appropriate way and to reach, to access the information we need, the relevant information we need. Then we should be able to read single text. Usually when we Google for looking for information about unfamiliar topics, we face more than one text, more than one document. We should be able, of course, to decode the words, to comprehend each of the texts, and to evaluate the quality of the information source. It means that we have to create relationships between text A, text B, text C, and so on. And it is the intertextual integrations that helps us to take into account the characteristic of the source and link these characteristics to the content. In terms of the well-known Kinch model of text comprehensions, we know that we comprehend text at a deeper level when we are able to integrate the new information introduced in the text with information that already exists in our memory system. And this is the level that is called the situation model. But when we are facing with the 2 or 3 online information sources, we need to understand not only a single text, but multiple texts. But in order to have an integrated comprehension of multiple texts, we need to link the author, the source, with the contents to understand, for example, that text B agrees with the text A and disagrees with the text C, and so on. Only in this way we can create an integrated mental model of conflicting information. And the quality assessment, the assessment of the quality, the reliability, the credibility of online information source can take the form of validation or epistemic monitoring. And the research has documented that readers use their prior knowledge and beliefs to monitor incoming information for consistency. If we face inconsistent information, that is, information conflicting with our pre-existing knowledge and beliefs, we may reject this new information. And research has indicated, many studies has indicated the so-called plausibility bias. That is, only plausible information are more likely integrated into mental model representation of text content. It means that if we consider new information as plausible, we integrate this information in our memory system. As you can see from this picture, regardless of the reading goal, more epistemic or more receptive, plausible information is much more integrated than implausible information. So the problem is the match between what we already know and the new incoming information. Quality assessment also takes the form of sourcing. In the last 10 years, a research line has flourished on sourcing. It means attending to, representing, evaluating, and using information about the sources of document content. It means, concretely, it means to take into account who is the author. Is he, she expert, competent? The document genre. It means, is this text published in the PDF of a scientific article, or is a commercial in a propaganda document? The venue, is a scientific journal or not, the place and date of a publication. And it is that when we consider source features in the reading process, that we become critical readers and learners rather than passive consumers of information. But as we have heard in the previous paper sessions today, learning is the result of a delicate interplay of cognitive and non-cognitive factors. And by non-cognitive, I mean the warm factors. So also when we consider the online search for information and comprehension of online information, we should consider not only code factors like reading comprehension ability, for example, but also warm factors that refer to our motivation, emotion, and the commitment with a specific given topic. In our empirical experimental research, we refer to the cognitive affective engagement model by American colleagues, Alexandra List and Patricia Alexander. They try to move forward the code models and propose a model that includes 4 default stances about motivations and emotional processes. As you can see in the middle of the presentation, there are 4 default stances. Disengaged means no involvement, affective and cognitive involvement in the task of searching and comprehending information online. Affectively engaged, in contrast, is a strong emotional response to the topic we are reading about, and the stronger response may interfere with the rational judgment. The evaluative stance means the use of heuristic to weigh the pros and cons regarding a controversial issues, but mainly at the lower level. The more advanced stance is named critical analytic, as is a nice combinations of the cognitive of cold and warm factors in building knowledge while we are on the web. So now I would like to share some results of our studies. I chose 3 studies to give you an idea of what we have done regarding source evaluations in a student at different grade levels. And study 1 was about emotional reactivity in relation to sourcing and comprehension. It was carried out in grade 7, the second year of the middle school in Italy. We focused, I'm sorry, but there is not the optimal correspondence between the arrows and the words in this presentation mode. Anyway, we focus on emotional reactivity as the individual tendency to react more or less intensely to materials which is emotionally engaging. We as individuals difference in of the threshold that we need to generate an emotional response. Some of them need a low threshold, some others need a high threshold to react emotionally. And we took into account, because it's very important, the resource allocation model in terms of the relationship between emotional activations and the cognitive performance. This model posits that intense affective states detract, drain attention from a complex cognitive task. So fewer cognitive are available for deep processing of the information we are facing. And we consider the 2 basic parameters of emotional response: the valence, which is the degree of pleasantness associated with the response, and it is usually measured by self-reports, as we have heard in the previous sessions. And we also measure arousal, that is the intensity of the emotional activation that ranges from being very excited to being very calm. This arousal can also be measured by self-reports, but to move forward, we measure arousal by objective indices. We measure it at the physiological level through electrodermal activity, which is sweat of a palm finger. So the research questions that guide our study was the following. Do profiles of emotional reactivity, students' emotional reactivity, differentiate multiple text comprehension online in terms of sourcing and argumentation when controlling for potentially interfering factors? And we hypothesize that more reactive students would show poor multiple text comprehension than reactive peers, by referring to the resource allocation model. Multiple text comprehension, sourcing, and argumentations requires extra elaborative processing of information. But when students are hyper-aroused, they don't have all the cognitive resources available to deal with the complex cognitive task at hand. So we involved more than 100 participants. They read 6 sites on a topic that was of interest for them: the health risk associated with the continuous use of a mobile phone. They read pages that varied for reliability, positions, and emotional content. This is the result of the page. It was presented as an online environment. It was saved offline, of course. And we measure skin conductance, which is an index of skin conductance level, an index of arousal, of emotional arousal, through the use of simple sensors that can be used in the real school context, as we did. And after reading the 6 pages, students were involved in a task of lower comprehension and a task of a higher level comprehension. We asked them to cite the sources they came across and to provide an argument about the controversial topic. We control for a number of variables that could interfere: prior knowledge, reading comprehension, working memory, and the perceptions of the students' strengths and difficulties. Oh my goodness, this is not a very good form, but anyway, we measured physiological arousal at baseline when students were in a state of calm and during the watching of an emotionally negative video, to make the difference between the baseline and the activation when engaging with emotionally material. And you can see that they were, of course, arousal increased during the activations during video watching. And they also, after video watching, reported a more negative valence of the affective states, as expected. And then through a cluster analysis, we identified 2 profiles of students. We termed them high reactive, emotionally reactive, and low reactive students. And interesting is to see the results as a function of these 2 profiles. You can see that there was no difference between high reactive, emotionally reactive students and the low reactive students for the more superficial level of comprehensions, but the difference was for sourcing. It means that high reactive students were not able to cite the sources in their essay, in their post-reading essay, as the low reactive student. And also argumentation was less better for high reactive students. So we can conclude from the study that the predisposition to be more or less reactive to a negative emotional stimulus that they watched in a video differentiate sourcing, which is crucial in order to be able to build a coherent representations of 6, in this case, texts about the same topic. More reactive students were less able to report who said what in the 6 sites. They had fewer cognitive resources available for processing to encode source information and make the links between source and content, and they had lower cognitive resource, fewer cognitive resources available because they were hyper-aroused according to the theoretical model. Yet, research has documented, has indicated evidence that sourcing can be developed in educational context at different grade levels, from elementary to higher education. And very important, better sourcing means higher comprehension. So in this second study, we try to promote source evaluation and comprehensions in grade 8, the last year of middle school in Italy. Oh my goodness. We consider that in the literature, there are 2 types of short-term interventions for promoting sources. Short-term intervention means that the 2-3 sessions at maximum are used to implement an intervention in the real school context, in the classrooms. One type is providing explicit knowledge about what to consider of a web page. The other type is an implicit intervention, in the sense that 2 in case of sourcing are presented, and the students are guided to identify by themselves which is the more appropriate strategies to evaluate information sources. And we asked, is a type of intervention more effective than the other? And we at the beginning, based on the literature, we hypothesized that the intervention based on contrasting case would be superior, both for sourcing and the comprehension, because it would made more salient, more vivid the better strategies to deal with online sources. But we also hypothesized that both intervention would be superior to the control condition. In this case, we involved quite a large number of students, which were assigned to three conditions: declarative knowledge, explicit intervention, contrasting case, implicit, and the control. And in the interventions of first type, we provide information directly to help them recognize who is the author, if the information is reliable, and why. And they practice, in the second section, they practice reliability judgment about two debate topics: genetically modified food and the extinction of dinosaurs. In the contrasting case, students read the protocols of two students who use different strategies to decide which of the two sides to take into consideration. One strategy was low level and the other was higher level, much greater. They also practice reliability judgment on the same topic, reading the same online information sources. You don't have to read, of course, just the protocol of student 1, less advanced, and the student 2, more advanced in terms of criteria. And the control group, they read the same site, but no intervention at all was implemented on source evaluations. We ensure that at the beginning, the students, the three conditions didn't differ for a number of variables that could interfere with the outcome variable. And these are the 4 pages they read at this time about the health risk associated with the use of mobile phones, high reliability and low reliability, and they also differ for the positions on the topic. Let's see the results. You can see that in both intervention conditions, declarative knowledge and contrasting case, students were more able than control students to rank the sites for reliability. This is a kind of epistemic judgment. And interesting, at least for us, the qualitative analysis of the justifications they provide for ranking the 4 sites. And for all the sites, we found significant differences in terms of the frequencies of the justifications that regarded the source characteristics. It means that for the site 1, site 2, site 3, and site 4, from the most reliable to the least reliable, students in the 2 intervention conditions appeal much more to source characteristics than students on the control condition. And the contrast happened for the source content criteria, and more students in the control condition appear to source content, but in this case, source content meant easiness of the words, the appearance of the site, low-level criteria. And also important, the comprehension of a conflicting text on the topic. Again, the 2 intervention conditions reach the higher scores for comprehensions than control group, indicating the implicit link between sourcing and the comprehensions. So both short-term intervention result to be effective in promoting the use of source characteristics, the so-called metadata, when expressing judgments about the credibility, the reliability of the sources. Both interventions also promote deep comprehension of a conflicting text. We cannot say that one intervention is superior to the other, as both were effectively compared to the control condition. But it means that it is possible to increase sourcing skills. The last study I will briefly mention was carried out at the University of Valencia by my colleagues Lalo Salmeron and Pablo Delgado. We used a recent fascinating technique. We measure eye movement during reading behavior. But in this case, we based on eye movement modeling example. What does it mean? A video of the ocular behavior of an expert who is carried on a task is shown to students. Look at and see what an expert did to sustain a more effective interaction with the learning materials. It's much used, for example, in medical education to train students where to look, for example, in an X-ray image to make an appropriate diagnosis. In this case, we want to compare students who were modeled by eye movement and sources in the control conditions, and we asked whether student would show more strategic processing of online information, for example, longer time on the results page, which can already give us some information about the reliability of the sites. And we also asked whether student would increase source citation in their post-reading essays. And through eye movement, we model a process to help students to pay attention to source characteristics, to evaluate the quality based on source characteristics, and to draw conclusions about the reliability or the bias of an information source. Let's see, I cannot show the video, no, anyway. Trust me that we model, for example, the first, when you digit and you look for information, you have the first snippets, the page of the results. And we modeled, and the video of an expert show how we can spend longer time after the first scrolling on snippets that refer to more advanced expertise, more reliable, because there is a line that can provide information. Anyway, let's see. Participants were university students. In this case, we use two different topics. One is a pre-test before being modeled by eye movement, and after the first the energies for fight, renewable energies for fight climate change, and the second test topic, genetically modified food. And here are the results. You can see the eye movement model in red. They spend a longer time on the results on the SERP, the page about the various snippets after results. They were no differences regarding the time spent on trustworthy webs, but there was difference in the time spent reading untrustworthy, unreliable webs, in the sense that students in the intervention condition spent less time, as it should be, on biased sources. And intervention students also cite more sources in their post-reading essay. So this was the first study to indicate that short M can be used to foster important aspects of source evaluation process for critical reading. And we also use these for other objectives with middle school students, and they say that M is an effective tool, not only for research, but also for teaching. And this was also the first study to provide evidence that M can play a role in post-reading essays in terms of this document sources that are cited. And we know that we should pay attention to the source to be a critical consumer of information. So to conclude, we need immunizations against misinformation. For complex issues, which are very often controversial, social-scientific controversial issues, students come across several types of online text. And often these texts include divergent ideas about the same topic. So students must be able to recognize, to identify different intertextual relationships while they are reading, and to engage in deep strategic processing to construct a coherent mental representation, to make a synthesis of 4 or 6 websites. And sourcing validation processes are crucial in such complex task of the digital era. And individual differences can support or impede sourcing and validation. Both cognitive and affective individual characteristics must be taken into account in planning and implementing psychoeducational interventions. At the end of my talk, I must thank all collaborators. Without their work, I couldn't do what I did, and so I'm very grateful to Maria Caterina Tornatora, Sara Scrimin, Lalo Salmeron, Pablo Delgado, Angelica Moe, Sonia Zaccoletti. And of course, now I thank you for your passion, and I hope I hope to have been clear, and so you could follow my argument. And please don't be shy, ask questions. You can ask in Italian, no problem. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. I can assure that from my side, I'm sure that was very clear. This brilliant lecture. If you want, I have your presentation, and I can share the video that you were not able with this kind of.
Thank you. Just
so
to give an idea.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. If there is time.
Yeah, I think it's very useful for our audience to understand better, which is the approach. I think you are seeing my screen. I place
Yes.
a full screen, and then
this is the self-scanning,
Yeah.
Here, the model is looking at the different lines. Then she come back again, reread, recheck, which is important, the delayed processing, because it means that you are engaged. So reread so the time spent reading the SERP page is important. Here we model how to read a commercial page, which is unreliable, it's not the best source of information. You know that you see that he read the logo, and so you can have an idea of what you are reading. The author at the end, the commercial director. So okay, the circle means where the person is looking at.
Okay.
There are very short videos of 3-4 minutes.
Yeah, because I think it is very your results, your initial results were impressive, because this approach brings some a different way to approach with data, with data on an online screen, and it's very, very interesting. I would ask a question. In this case, we analyze the misinformation. You talk about immunization. It was a great word in this moment, in this historical moment. How can do you think that this can be also a strong relation for learning? I see. If I learn to analyze different sources, I can study better in my normal study, because I know that I have to find more information for a single topic, a single information that is useful also in learning, and also in research, in our work as researchers. Do you think that can be a scaffold and support for this?
Yes, of course. Nowadays, for almost each topic, we can find multiple texts, multiple sources of information, especially because the internet has become the source of information. You don't need books at home, and this is a great aspect of the democratization of our society. By a simple click, we can have everything. But we should be able to draw profit from the infinite numbers of sources that we came across. It is true that we can be scaffolded in seeing a topic, for example, from various points of view, from various perspectives, which is good to support argumentation skills, because you face different point of views. But the problem is to make a synthesis, a cognitive synthesis, to understand 3, 4, 2, 3 points of view and points of view, and construct and integrate representations. When we evaluate post-reading comprehension, we ask students in the various studies to provide an argument about what they read, based on what they read. And many students just reported one position. At the lower level, they report one position. At the higher level, they report both positions, for example, and even at the higher level, they report both positions, and they also explain that we need further research to have more conclusive results. So the problem is for students who even don't recognize different points of view. Even at the university level, we have evidence they don't recognize at a sufficient level different perspectives. So they must be equipped with essential tools to make a distinction between reliable and unreliable, between science, between knowledge that is based on science and the knowledge that is based on personal opinion, that can coincide with the science, but can also not coincide. So it is true. Sometimes I came across with university students that when they are preparing a dissertation, and of course I supervise them, and when I ask sometimes, where did you find this? On the internet. But where? On the internet. They don't pay attention to the source, but you are preparing a kind of scientific work. So you must be very aware of the sources you are consulting. So
absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's very inspiring. This also because, in my opinion, when we go online, we are attracted by the interactivity of the page, the quick model that the online source provide us, and we emphasize the fast thinking in a certain way.
Oh, yes. This is fast thinking, rewarding interaction. If I don't like this, I erase, I go to another one. Yeah, that's why in another line of research I'm involved in now is to compare comprehension from digital reading and traditional reading, because in our school much is still done traditionally, that is a student read on paper, especially at the elementary and the middle school level. And even the last results, after two years of remote learning, distance teaching, in 8th graders, we found that deeper level of comprehension is better when they read on paper than digital, because the sharing hypothesis is the most plausible hypothesis, because they started using digital devices for leisure activity, and they are characterized by quick and reward interactions, and they tend to apply the same approach when they use a digital device, a screen, but they are reading for complex issues, reading for school activities, and if they apply the same superficial approach, text comprehension, deeper text comprehensions cannot be good. That's the problem. We need to make, we cannot go back. We will read digitally, increase. The problem is to make students aware that when they are reading digitally for learning, for activities, they should have a different approach.
Yeah, I totally agree.
To see information, not to understand information.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the mix. I saw.
Yeah, a single source is a poor source. It's a poor information when you. But it's not clear. We should provide this evidence, as you did in your very, very, very interesting speech. We have to provide some evidence to say you need to read more. You have to gather more sources. That is very, very important to know where I get the information, as you presented in your speech. Okay, I don't. In this morning we have a shy public, but if you want to do question, you can also write them. I think we can, because we're a little bit late, we can close this session. Unfortunately, the chair of the conference, Professor Limone, is not here, but he have a lot of important tasks additional that when we placed the conferences were unexpected. So I will do a little closure of this conference. We are very happy for the results. We collected papers from different countries. We had also some an acceptation rate of 60%. So some papers were not included because we tried to have a threshold in a certain way. We collected papers from abroad, but the impact is obviously more for Italian university, and we get the majority from the university, Italian university. I was stimulated in some way, and I want to share with you in a couple of minutes some ideas. yesterday, the discussion brought to the idea of island. This idea that was popular yesterday, but I think that reflecting on this, when we go online, we are all islands, and we're and the need of this our interventions is to understand to how to have bridges between us. When we speak as a lecturer, we speak like in front of a wall, because when we have our slides, we have a wall, and we don't understand if our attendees are seeing us, are involved. We don't understand if we have to accelerate, to boost our presentation. And from the results that we got, we understood how the perception of remote the learning and teaching is something useful, but it's not it should be improved. And we saw a lot of studies to analyze the well-being related to remote teaching and learning, to understand the user-centered approach. As Professor Amazon said, the individual factor, psychological individual factor, the user, how to improve to place in the center the user. The remote teaching is something that is very important, is democratic, can allows us in the future, but it's not the only way, and we have to improve this under understanding the psychological aspects of this and improving the pedagogical approach for the future. This is something that is emerged from these 3 days, and we have a more mature ideas of what happened, because COVID-19 was a tsunami for learning, and the technology was the solution. Now we have to see under a psychological point of view the effects and provide some solution, as we saw in the last page. So this is the triangle: psychology, learning, and technology, and we want to continue to discuss. It's important, I think, to discuss, and if you want to discuss also asynchronously, write down to us, because we have to continue this kind of reflection. I was very glad to have these two important keynote speaker, Professor Sangra in the first part, and now Professor Mazon was a very added value for our conference. I want to thank also Professor Salesi, that was the chair of the session yesterday. I want to thank all of you to attend this conference and this day. Today we were 80 more or less participants, and however is a good result. We hope that in the next future we will be in presence. However, the blended approach will be maintained, because it's obviously in this way, and we are happy for it, and we have to find solution to engage more and more, and also, for example, also this day with a few questions is something that should make a reflection for us, how to engage more in an online sessions, in an online conference. This is another topic to understand, to reflect on, and to study, and to evaluate with numbers and then new studies. I'm very glad to close this conference. I want to thank all of you, And thank you for your presence. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you to all the authors, and see you to the next year. Bye-bye.
See you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.